Alright guys, today we are going to talk about something called integers. So just make sure you get your title at the top of your notes and the date of today, or well no, I shouldn't say today in case you're watching this at a later date. Make sure you get the date of the lesson down so that you keep that notebook nice and organized. Alright, so integers. Before we talk about integers, there are some things we have to remember first. First thing we want to remember is something called natural numbers. Now, even if you don't remember the phrase natural numbers, I promise you do remember what natural numbers are. They are the very first things that you learned in math class way back in probably kindergarten. So natural numbers are the numbers we use when counting by ones. So when you're counting for hide and go seek, you count 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the natural numbers. They're also called counting numbers. So that's the first thing we have to remember to start talking about integers. But before we hop right into integers, the next connection we'll make is the whole numbers. Now, whole numbers are all the natural numbers, but it also includes 0. So it's a little picky there. You might say, oh, why do we even have to have a difference there? But it is important. Whole numbers are all the natural numbers, but include 0 first. I don't know about you, but when I was playing hide and go seek, I don't really start with 0, 1, 2. I just start at 1. Whole numbers include 0. Now we're ready to start talking about something called integers. So integers are the whole numbers, so everything we include in the whole list of whole numbers. Now, everything in whole numbers that we talked about so far are positives. The integers are the positive and the negative versions of the whole numbers. So we're going to get into talking about what a negative is and really what a positive is also. First, we should start with that. But a special little note, just always remember throughout all of this that 0 is just 0. It's neither positive or negative, just 0. All right, so maybe you've heard the phrase positive before, but we're going to go over again what it actually means. So what does a positive number mean? A positive number is a value greater than 0. We use positive numbers to represent a sufficiency, which means it's a gain or it's something that you have enough of or an amount that you actually have. I'm going to use an example using money later that will well, we'll say it now. If I have sufficient money, let's say I want to buy a sandwich for $5. If I have $5, I have sufficient money. I have positive $5. So now that we have an idea of what a positive number is, let's talk about what a negative number is. So negative numbers are the opposites of positive numbers. A negative number is a value less than 0. So that might be kind of confusing. You might be wondering, well, 0 means nothing. How can we have less than nothing? So we'll use money as another example. So if you have $0, that means you have no dollars. Hopefully you never find yourself in that situation where you have no money. But so you might be asking yourself, what's worse than having no money? Well, something that's worse than having no money is having no money and owing someone else some money. So if you have no money, but you owe $30 to pay for your cell phone, you could think of yourself as at negative $30, because even if you get some money, you have to instantly just pay that off to your cell phone, so you don't even really get to keep it. That's a negative situation. So long story short, negative numbers are values less than 0. We can use negative numbers to represent a deficiency, which is a loss or an amount that you owe, like we talked about. Okay, so moving along, how do we write negative numbers? Because really, math we do some writing in. Keeps life simple when you write stuff out, less you have to put in your head. So to show a number is negative, we're going to write a minus sign in front of the number. Put the sign slightly higher than the middle of the number and a little closer to the number than a subtraction sign would be. So I have an example down below of what we're going to write -3 as. So -3 we would write like this. So we see how it's pretty close to the 3, and it's a little higher than the middle of the 3. That's a good way to really show that it's a -3 as opposed to a -3, but there are other differences. Sometimes they'll look the same, and we have to realize that it's a negative number. What's nice is there is a connection between subtraction and negative numbers, but we're going to talk about that in a future lesson. For now, we're just getting the basics down. All right, so continuing from here, after we got our example written down there, let me just resize this cover box up. So I'm gonna have you guys write down a table now. We're gonna have two sides of our table. This side's gonna represent words that represent positive numbers or positives. This one are words that represent negatives. So remember, positives represent amounts gained or amounts that you actually have. Some words that you might see in some problems that represent positive numbers that tell you that they're talking about a positive number is add, gain, new, above, or extra. So it might be a good idea to write these words down. You do have to write those words down. It's going to help you on the assignment. Words that represent negatives: remove, subtract, decrease, loss, and discount are all examples of some words that represent negatives. Not all words. It would be impossible for me to write down every single word that represents a positive and a negative, but these are some commonly used ones. But there are more words out there. Okay, so on to some examples of what you're going to have to do on your assignment. So on your assignment, you're going to have some questions that ask you to either write an integer that represents a scenario or to just simply select which integer represents the scenario. So here, the scenario they give us is 6 people leaving a long line. All right. So just in general, try to think, okay, if I have a long line and I have people leaving, think about what positives and what negatives mean. Positives mean that we add or we gain. So that doesn't really make sense with what we're saying here. Leaving is the opposite of adding or gaining people. Leaving is more like when we remove, we're removing 6 people from that line, or decrease, the line is decreasing by 6 people. So since it's 6 people leaving a long line, we'll say -6 represents this scenario. I'm going to write that a little neater though. Shorter symbol, higher up. So there we go. -6, that's all we have to do. -6 would represent that scenario. Let's look at one more scenario. Now this scenario says a $7 profit. So the word profit means that you earn money or that you're able to collect money. When businesses make a profit, that means that they're able to actually have a little extra money than what it costs them to give a product. For example, if there was a sandwich stand and they sell sandwiches for $5. Well, to make a sandwich, you got to have bread, meat, mayo, ketchup, or not ketchup. But anyway, you got to have materials to make it. So if the materials cost $3 and the store or the sandwich stand sells it for $5, that means they made a $2 profit. They had to pay for the materials, but they were also able to keep $2 because they sold it for $5. So anyway, profit means that you are earning money. So this word profit is going to represent a positive number. Positive numbers, we just write like we're used to, just the number 7. We don't put any other symbol with positive numbers. Officially, we don't write any other symbol. All right, guys, hopefully that gives you a good idea of what a negative number is, what integers are overall. Remember, integers are positive whole numbers and the negative versions of those whole numbers, and the number 0. Okay.